What's going on, guys? JSGC here, back again for another Manchester City reaction video. Before I do crack on with this video, make sure, like always, if you are enjoying the video, do subscribe to my channel. It is free to subscribe. Social media links there in the description if you want to go and follow me on my Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Email also in the description too if you want to hit me up for any sponsorship for any videos or any general business inquiries. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up on the video and do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So, Manchester City lost to Real Madrid in the Champions League first leg playoff to get into the last 16 at the Etihad Stadium by 3-2. A game that Manchester City led twice in this game before blowing it in the final 4 minutes of this game, and see Real Madrid now have a huge advantage heading into the second leg at the Bernabeu next week. So, we'll go through all the talking points first and foremost. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lose the plot because I've said before, and I'll say it again, I feel like I can make one generic reaction video where I can just speak about every time Manchester City lose, it's going to be for the same reasons. And I get frustrated because we don't really learn anything new, because the weaknesses that Manchester City have had all this season once more are on full show to be exposed by any team that is capable of exposing Manchester City. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, Manchester City this season, to me, are very much flat-track bullies. They are capable of beating teams who aren't very good, but when they go up against teams who are organised, who know how to stay in games, who know how to press, know how to attack, and know how to score goals and play without fear, you can take results and points off Manchester City. Seen it time and time again in the Premier League, seeing the likes of Tottenham Hotspur come to the Etihad Stadium and play us off the park and pick up a tremendous win. Against Arsenal a few weeks back, where Manchester City, things don't go their way and they implode and they struggle and their mindset disappears, and as soon as something hasn't gone Man City's way, they struggle to pick themselves back up. And for me, I felt like we just started to turn that a little bit in this game, because once Real Madrid had found that equaliser through that fluky goal from Kylian Mbappe, and Real Madrid were far from their clinical best, they could have scored a lot more than what they did in this game. I felt like Manchester City were slowing down, they were struggling to get involved in the game, and I was expecting it to be one-way traffic from there on out. Real Madrid just needed to be careful to ensure that they didn't allow Manchester City any time and space on the ball to come forward and sucker punch them and ensure that we end up getting our lead back. And that did happen through that mistake from Ceballos with the foul on Phil Foden. We get the penalty. It's a well-taken penalty from Erling Haaland. We've got 10 minutes to see out. Now, when you're in that position, you're 2-1 ahead in a first leg of a Champions League knockout playoff game against Real Madrid, you shut up shop. You pack out that midfield and defence. You give Real Madrid no time and no space on the ball. You start buying the free kicks. You start frustrating Real Madrid. What you don't do is start treating it like it's still the first minute of the game and it's still 0-0. Whilst you are treating it like that, it's a nice positive mental attitude to have in approaching the game, and you are more likely to come out and score goals. But whilst you're more likely to score goals and build on your lead, when you've got 10 minutes to go, you've got to shut up shop and be able to go to the Bernabeu defending your lead. So then we know that Real Madrid need to win next week in their game. They're under pressure and we have slight advantage for ourselves. What we didn't do is manage the game very well from finding that second goal from Erling Haaland, and from there it's very much you're getting into Real Madrid territory where you give them anything and they will punish you and come away with a goal. Poor giveaway from Ederson, and he's made some really good saves in this game. If it weren't for Ederson, this scoreline could easily have been 5 or 6 for Real Madrid. Poor giveaway. The shot that comes in is a poor save from Ederson. He just literally rebounds it straight back into the danger zone where former City man Brahim Diaz is, and he puts it into the back of the net. 2-2. And then when you've got 4 minutes left and it's 2-2, we need to win the game. So I can understand City wanting to go forward, but what you don't do is ensure that your opponents have got anything that they can work with. You've got to, when the ball comes forward, so when Kovacic nods that back to Rico Lewis has to fight and scramble with every inch of his life and boot that ball away. Worst case, he clatters into Vinicius Jr. He takes a yellow card. Real Madrid get the free kick. He doesn't do either. He allows Vinicius Jr. to get ahead of him to the ball, and once Vinicius Jr.'s got ahead of him to the ball and you've not taken him out, he's away. And that, to me, was always going to lead to one thing, and a goal and an assist for Vinicius Jr. Jude Bellingham has a tap-in, and it's a frustrating way to end the game. But it also leaves a bitter taste in Manchester City's mouth. We're left frustrated in what I thought was a pretty competitive, good game of football from Manchester City. There were plenty of positives. Showing good character when we're not playing too well in the second half to come back and go back ahead was really good, but the game management was really bad from Manchester City. And to me, lots of people keep pointing out Ilkay Gundogan comes on, it slows the pace of the team down, and Manchester City look weaker. But to me, Gundogan weren't to blame for that equaliser. The poor clearance from Ederson, you put your foot through it, you get it as far away from your goal as possible. You don't give it to one of Real Madrid's attacking front three to cause us problems and put us on a 3-on-3 situation. You don't do that. You don't save the ball and push it back into the danger zone. And there you've got another Real Madrid player ready for a nice tap-in to grab an equaliser. You don't do that. You don't put your teammates under pressure like Kovacic did with Rico Lewis, where he's stretching, he's not going to get to the ball. You take control of the situation, you put your foot through it, and worst case, put it in the stands. Send it out for a throw-in. Regroup. Now, Rico Lewis was exposed here, and I thought Manchester City defensively looked weaker in that second half because we didn't have the physical presence where Manuel Akanji, I thought, did a pretty good job for City in the first half. Nathan Ake goes off for Manchester City, you bring Kovacic on, and all of a sudden Akanji and Ake aren't on the pitch, and defensively City look much weaker because John Stones has done a great job in midfield. You're dropping him into defence, you're asking Josko Gvardiol to stay back. Josko Gvardiol isn't the best of defenders, and yet Josko Gvardiol in the first half, when he had more time, more space to get forward, was causing Real Madrid a lot of bother, and we didn't really see any of that in the second half. It was a very poor second half from Manchester City, and that second half is going to be the half that knocks us out of the Champions League, because we've got to go to Madrid, to the Bernabeu next week, and win by 2. It's not going to happen. We're going out the Champions League. What we want to do now, going forward, is ensure that we try and keep this tie competitive, because it could easily derail our season and the potential of Champions League football for next season if our confidence completely goes and we end up being on the receiving end of a battering next week in Madrid, which it could well happen. Had Real Madrid been clinical, that could have been the case here at the Etihad Stadium. I thought Man City did enough to keep it competitive. We should have got a result today. Better game management and would have got a win today, and Madrid would have been under pressure. They're now laughing, celebrating, having a good time, because they know what's going to happen next week. We know what's going to happen next week. So the focus can't be on next week. The focus has got to be on our next game against Newcastle. That Newcastle game is a huge game when it comes to top 4 football for next season. We've got back-to-back home games coming up against Newcastle, against Liverpool. Great challenges for Manchester City. Got to be thinking to ourselves, Madrid game, we've lost at the Etihad. We don't lose often at the Etihad in the Champions League. It's happened. We're going to go out, try and keep it competitive next week. What you don't do is you start to dwell on that and think about that. We can't be thinking about Madrid against Newcastle, and we can't be licking our wounds from going out next week in our game against Liverpool. The focus has got to be on the Premier League. When it gets to the end of the season, the success for Manchester City will be decided on what have you got to show for your season. Well, at the bare minimum, you need to show that we've got Champions League football. We do not have Champions League football for next season, then that is a disaster. An absolute disaster. And I don't want Manchester City just tiptoeing their way through the Champions League for us to ultimately go out to a better team than us, because there's 21 better teams than Manchester City. The league phase showed that. We weren't good enough then. We aren't good enough now. So to me, keep it competitive. We're going to go out next week. Focus on the Premier League. The schedule becomes a bit easier for City once we get through our next 4 Premier League games, because we can focus then on playing once a week rather than every 3 to 4 days. Player fatigue doesn't become an issue. Injuries to players doesn't become an issue. The ageing squad isn't an issue when you're playing once a week. You can focus one game at a time, lots of rest and recovery days, and lots of preparation days, and Manchester City more than likely will start to excel from there. We've just got to, at this moment in time, it's such an important month this February for Manchester City, you've just got to keep yourselves in and around. And the most frustrating part, we're just simply not learning lessons. And at the moment, we're just not good enough. Real Madrid are better than us. They're going to knock us out next week. We've got a very difficult game against Newcastle at the Etihad Stadium. We've got to win that game. Big game against Liverpool. Liverpool are having a much better season than Manchester City. We're in our own backyard. I want to see responses from the players. I want to see the players really taking the game forward. I want to see Manchester City managing games properly and dominating rather than just showcasing that we're a team that can beat teams who are in the bottom half of the Premier League, but when we go up against a good team in the top half or an organised team in Europe, that we just completely go into self-destruct mode and continue just to cause ourselves problems. And that's what's happened here in this game. You know, we're a bit unlucky with the injuries with Akanji. Jack Grealish had a good game before going off. And that goal that Erling Haaland scored, the first goal for City, brilliant build-up play. There's lots of positives for City to take away, but at the moment, the defence for City and the gaps into midfield, it's just too much. It's not good enough. And there's not going to be success come the end of the season if we continue to stick with that. Not unless you keep your players injury free. We didn't. When did Jack Grealish go off? Like, what was it? Like 30th minute? 30th minute. That's how long we managed to keep our players fit for before they end up going off. And Akanji ends up going off at half-time. And now we've got a couple of players again injured heading into the Newcastle game who may well miss out on the Madrid game as well next week. It's incredibly frustrating. It's been a very frustrating season for Manchester City. And the lessons not being learned for me is just not good enough. You go up against a great team like Real Madrid with the attacking presence that they've got, and you go with Rico Lewis coming in for the second half, and you're going in with Ilkay Gundogan coming in off the bench. You're taking Nathan Ake off, and you're bringing Kovacic on, and you're slowing the pace of the game down. Savinho didn't really do much in the second half, but you leave him on until right near the end of the game, and you've got the presence and power and precision that Real Madrid have got in attack. It's going to cause problems. You go with a high line, you know, Vinicius Jr., he's not scared of playing against Rico Lewis. He's rubbing his hands at it. He's excited about it. I would be. We're not good enough. There's the harsh reality. We're not good enough. The big question for me isn't about next week in the Champions League against Madrid. It isn't even in the FA Cup, and can you bring the trophy back come the end of the season? The big question is, are we good enough to finish in the top 4? We might even get lucky. Top 5 could be good enough for the Champions League, but you know, we lose against Newcastle at the weekend, lose against Liverpool the weekend after, lose against Tottenham Hotspur away and Nottingham Forest away in the 2 Premier League games after that, and all of a sudden this season is very difficult for Man City. That's the gaps that we're looking at. You can easily go from top 4, top 5, straight down into 9th or 10th place, and you get to the business end of the season. We're so used to Man City being perfect at the business end of the season, and we're scrapping and scraping, needing 5, 6, 7 wins in a row, not to win a Premier League, but to get a top 4 finish. That's where Manchester City are at. I didn't think Pep got his team line up right here. I felt Man City lacked a bit of power and a bit of pace themselves. Makeshift defence for Real Madrid. I didn't think we offered enough. Foden, hindsight, should have started. I'd have liked to have seen Doku come on. I'd have liked to have seen Marmoush on much earlier from Manchester City. As it was, I felt like Man City were too careful, and Real Madrid got too much quality for Manchester City to try and be too careful. You've got to be ruthless against Real Madrid. We haven't been ruthless. We weren't clinical. We had not great game management, and we're being punished for it, and now we're going to go out, and now our focus has to turn to the Premier League instead to try and scramble some success from the season, because if we can win our next couple of games, the next 2 home games against Newcastle and Liverpool, we're looking pretty good for Champions League football, but lose them heading into under pressure games where we've not got a great record at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and a difficult away game against Nottingham Forest at the City Ground. All of a sudden this season becomes hard, difficult, and Manchester City on the ropes. So a huge 4 or 5 weeks coming for Manchester City to determine is there going to be success or not come the end of the season. As it is for the Champions League, it looks like that's coming to an end next week, because your home match in the first leg, you got to win them. You don't, you're going out. We've lost the game, we're going to go out next week. There's the harsh reality, because we're not good enough. They're my thoughts. Get your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget as well to leave a thumbs up on the video. Do subscribe if you're new around here. Press that red button, press the bell, and put your push notifications on. Social media links in the description if you want to come follow me on my Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Email also in the description too if you want to hit me up for any sponsorship for any videos or any general business inquiries. And I'll see you all again real soon for the next City video. So I've been JSGC. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope everyone is safe and well. Peace. Ciao for now.